All right. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thanks for joining. We will continue in our reading of the Risale-i 25th word. And just as a reminder, this part of this chapter is about the miraculousness of the Quran and of the number of lights it contains. Of the first light, it contains 3 rays, where I believe we're on the 3rd ray, which describes the miraculousness of the Quran's exposition in its giving news of the unseen, preserving its youth in every age, and being appropriate to every level of person. And it seems we are currently in the 2nd radiance, which is about the Quran's youth and how it preserves its freshness in every age. So I think I missed a week or 2, but I believe we're on the 3rd principle. I'll read through it, and if I'm missing anything, it would be helpful if y'all help me fill in some details or make connections that I missed. So 3rd principle, unreasoning civilization criticizes the Quranic verse which apportions to women 1/3 in inheritance. However, most of the rulings concerning social life are in accordance with the majority, and mostly a woman finds someone to protect her. As for the man, she will be a burden on him and will have to combine efforts with someone else who will leave her means of subsistence. Thus, in this form, if a woman takes half of the father's legacy, her husband makes up her deficiency. But if the man receives 2 parts from his father, 1 part he will give to maintaining the woman he has married, thus becoming equal with his sister. The justice of the Quran requires it to be thus. It has decreed it in this way. So this seems to understand, I guess, these Quranic injunctions of laws, about like inheritance and other things that seem unfair to women. That a woman, people interpret this in a way that women are less than men because they receive less inheritance. But Nursi is arguing that this is done with this ruling or decree is done with context of what happens in society, that a woman is not on her own, that she is being cared for or helped, being cared for by a man, whereas a man has to take care of another person, which is kind of how it balances out. So I think that that makes sense. What I'm not exactly sure is why this is being brought up in this chapter or in this section. As I've mentioned, I'm a little I've missed a couple weeks, and I'm not sure where how the reading has progressed. But I guess it could be that it could be that this idea that a man should provide for a woman, that could be a timeless thing that preserves its freshness throughout the ages, that we shouldn't let women be on their own. I'm not sure, maybe I'm misreading. But are there any comments or questions at this point in the conversation? Brother Bir Khan.
Assalamu alaikum. Regarding your question, why this part is here, so as far as I understand, so this part is about discussing that whatever you read in Quran, no matter how you take it, because there are many different ways to read and interpret the verses. And author is saying, I guess, that however you take them, even if you take them from the surface value, at the surface value, and treat them as if they are merely giving providing some rules regarding social life. If you take them as such, you will still gain something out of Quran. So that is his claim, right, about the miraculousness of Quran that we discussed before. The Quran speaks to everyone. But if this is the case, the criticism would be, yeah, there are such verses in Quran which seems to be concerning the social life, and if we take them at the surface value, they don't make any sense. According to author, this unreasoning civilization would criticize. And they would say, if you take this verse, for example, which says a woman should take 1/3 of inheritance, it doesn't make sense. But the author says, no, even if you take it that way, it actually makes sense. Like it wouldn't cause a conflict in social life. It wouldn't, it wouldn't be seen as something against the contemporary living of a human being. Hence, this criticism cannot nullify, cannot invalidate that the claim that the verses of Quran are for every age, every time period. So I guess that's the reason this specific verse and the part is there, because this verse concerning the inheritance is part of a controversy. It's always criticized as being not valid anymore in our time, but authors saying that even if you take it at the surface value, you will see that there is nothing wrong with it. So even after all these years, this verse stands as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for your elaboration. Certainly makes sense to me. Also, there's a little footnote which says, where Norcy says, this is part of my court defense, which was the supplement for the appeal court and which silenced the court. It is appropriate as a footnote for this passage. I told the court of law, surely if there is any justice on the face of the earth, it will reject and quash an unjust decision which has convicted someone for expounding a most sacred, just, divine rule, which governs in the social life of 350 million people in the year 1350, and in every century, relying on the confirmation and consensus of 350,000 Quranic commentaries and following the beliefs of our forefathers of 1,350 years. There's a lot of numbers in there, but I guess he's saying, there's something there's any true justice, it's timeless. It's, no matter what year it is, it's going to be, victorious over any other argument or claim. I guess we can move on to the fourth principle. So, just as the Quran severely prohibits the worship of idols, so it prohibits the worship of images, which is a sort of imitation of idol worship, whereas civilization counts the representation of forms as one of its virtues, and has attempted has attempted to dispute the Quran in this matter, but represented forms, whether pictorial or concrete, are either embodied tyranny or embodied hypocrisy or embodied lust. They excite lust and encourage man to oppression, hypocrisy, and licentiousness. Moreover, the Quran compassionately commands women to wear the veil of modesty so that they will be treated with respect, and those minds of compassion will not be trodden under the feet of low desires, nor be like worthless goods for the excitement of lust. Civilization, however, has drawn women out of their homes, rent their veils, and corrupted mankind, for family life continues through the mutual love and respect of man and wife. For but immodest dress has destroyed sincere respect and affection, and has poisoned family life, while worship of the human form in particular has shaken morality in appalling fashion, causing the abasement of man's spirit. This may be understood from the following: to look lustfully and with desire at the corpse of a beautiful woman who is in need of pity and compassion destroys morality. So too, to look lasciviously, lasciviously at the representations of dead women or of living women, for they are like little corpses, shakes to their very roots the elevated human emotions and destroys them. I think this was a heavy passage, especially, um, well, the end was definitely pretty heavy, but also, the beginning where it's all about, how culture or civilization is in love with images and things, um, and they are wherever wherever you see them. Um, and I think a lot of it is just, we take it for day to day. It's just regular everyday things. We're not concerned with, I don't know, television advertisements or billboards. They're just a part of the air we breathe, and we don't really, we're unaware of, I don't know, whatever effect they may be having in the backgrounds. Um, but yeah, are there any comments or questions regarding this passage? Brother Beer Khan.
Salam again. Since nobody is speaking, so this is something I said before, I guess, in maybe several occasions, but so I really don't know what kind of life the author lived in his own time, how he treated other people, especially women, how he spoke to them, how he interacted with them. I really don't know. Like, not that I don't care. I don't know. Like, I lack this information. But at least to some extent, I know how Prophet, peace be upon him, treated, other people, and especially women, since we are talking about mostly the women in this paragraph. And it seems obvious to me that there's a separation between Quranic guidance, what is recommended, what is suggested, what is given in guidance in Quran, and how it is applied practically by Prophet. This is one part. And the second thing is our cultural traditions. There is a separation, there's a huge separation between the two. So it is obvious, it is certain. I think there is no discussion there. When we look at the Muslim majority, or the Muslim majority as we perceive, right? Because I cannot claim that, you know, I travel the world and see most of the Muslim. I know I don't. My interaction with other Muslim, fellow Muslim people are very limited to my neighborhood, in which, you know, at least more than 70%, as far as I see, are Muslim immigrants, mostly coming from different countries, mostly people of color, like immigrants like myself, okay? And also my interaction in my own country, most of them are at least said to be Muslim. I'm not criticizing their claims, I'm criticizing, you know, that it is written in their national identity cards, like, I don't know if it's same with the current version, but anyway, like most of the people by government are assigned to be Muslim. So when I look at them, when I look at myself, there are certain patterns when it comes to women. And just to be honest, it is most of the time, not always, but most of the time, it's either unacceptable or even worse, terrible. The way we treat, you know, the woman, our partners. And because of that, what we do usually, and the roots of this treatment, the roots of this, the image of women in a Muslim society is, at least the way I see, is mostly cultural. We impose our historical, cultural traditions we try to impose them to our understanding of religion. And we say that, oh yeah, this is the religious practice. But unfortunately, as a matter of fact, by its design, cultural traditions has to be historical, because cultures change through time. They are dynamic by nature, so they have to be historical. As much as we want to continue them, we want to, you know, apply them everywhere at every time, they fail. And again, unfortunately, because we try to equate our cultural traditions with the religious understanding and guidance, it seems that the religious guidance also fails. It is also historic. I think what author is trying to say here is that there are certain things that you will read in Quran about women or men, or about ethics, or about morality, or about social life, or about the feeling of shame, for instance. All these different human, the notions, you will see, and at surface value when you read them, and without going too much deep, when you try to understand them, whatever you read them, they are actually different than our cultural traditions, and they are not historical. They are not historical by nature. By their design, they have to be non-historic. They have to be applicable to every time, because it's a guidance from the absolute creator. So if there is a conflict, make sure that your understanding is not tainted, is not mixed with your cultural traditions. So this is one thing, like we have to be very careful with such topics, because especially with such topics, our cultural traditions are almost 100% replacing the religious guidance. So for instance, a text like this talks about the lust, or talks about, let me see, modesty, talks about respect or compassion. Our cultural, again, traditions, takes the scene usually, and say, yes, this is true. We should keep our women inside. They shouldn't be outside. They should cover all their body. Nobody should see them. It is forbidden, and so on and so forth. But when we look at the practical application of the prophet, we see that in the social life, women and men are together. They're working together. They're working in the commerce. They're working in making trades. They're working in even the religious matters. They are together building a civilization together. In marriage, it is at least narrated that whenever a wife of a prophet or his daughters, enters a room, he would stand out of respect and salute them. Well, I don't know the word, sorry. Say hi or say salam to them. But in our traditions, such a respect is definitely not there. And we try to convince people that this is the way the religious practice, that you should treat your wife bad, as if they are a secondary kind or level of humanity. So here's as if we are reading something similar, the author criticizing civilization driving women out of their homes. So should we read this as, yes, women shouldn't be out of their homes, or are we going to read the text and try to find the intention of the author in line with the Quranic wisdom? So this is not an explanation of the text that I'm making. I'm just saying that we should be very careful. We should try to understand the Quranic wisdom, if there is any, in this text, not cultural practices. And our goal is not to protect cultural traditions. If our culture is doing something bad, it is there to be condemned. We should say, yeah, it's bad. We don't have to protect anything. Let's try to get the wisdom out of it, if there is any. And if there is no, then there is no. We would say, yeah, author, you are a great author, but at this part, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with you. So this is, I guess, the one important thing we shouldn't forget. I already spoke a lot, so let's hear others, and then maybe if there's more time, I can share what I understand from this text.
Sure, Brother Brikan, thank you again for, I guess, clarifying or with how we should approach this text and giving some context to understanding it. There is a footnote I should read. It's getting cut off from my screen. I don't know why. Okay, the 24th flash of the 31st letter about the veiling of women has proved most decisively that Islamic dress is natural for women and that to cast it aside is contrary to women's nature. Okay, I guess in light of what we just heard, the veil, woman's veil, is understood by however the Quran defines it, and not with our specific cultural definitions of what it might be. So I guess we can probably finish the fourth principle and, come back and stop if we have any comments or questions. So, Brother Birkan, would you like to say something?
Oh, yes, I like to say a few things about the fourth principle.
Okay. It's not done, but yeah, you can speak now if you want.
I think the rest is not part of the fourth principle.
Oh.
Okay. I think the rest is explanation of these entire examples.
Oh, you're probably right.
So the one thing, like, I'm also reading the original, and I know it's like not fair to say that, but it's really clearer, more clear in the original version. The word choices are important, of course. So what I understand here in this text, the author says the Quran forbids the worshipping of idols. Worshipping of idols is forbidden. It's clear, right? There's no discussion there. But of course, we need to ask ourselves, like, why? What is wrong with it? And rather than taking it just as a rule that, oh, we cannot worship idols, hence I will not worship idols. Otherwise, it was good to worship idols, but I will not, just because it's not, it is forbidden. I guess this shouldn't be our approach. Of course, we should try to understand the wisdom meaning of the idols, what it means to worshiping idols, and so on. And then he says, just like worshiping idols is forbidden in Quran, worshiping the how would you translate the word surat? I'm not sure. The image, like an image, yes, it is image, but not necessarily photograph. So for instance, I have an apple and it has a shape, it has an image.
Right.
The way it looks, right?
Like the idea of an apple, its
No, not an
characteristics.
idea. It's like more physical. The way it
Ah,
looks like, the way it looks, its color, its shape. Okay. And when you apply it to a human, for instance, the form, maybe, yes. Worshipping forms is forbidding, it says. But of course, when we, like, let's be practical, when I apply it to Atik, for instance, if my interaction with Atik is purely based on his form, meaning, everybody knows Atik is a very handsome guy, very bright face, and the very nice hair, the eyes, and so on and so forth, with muscles, maybe, I don't know.
no.
It's been a while, I haven't seen him. But anyway, like, everybody would agree that Atik is a good-looking person. And if my interaction with Atik is based on his form, the way it looks, his image, then for me, Atik is his form, right? Then I am thankful to him, for instance, I am thankful to his form, and I'm spending time with him just because of his image, his form. So I'm reducing him to his form. An author says, if you live life in this way, if it is the forms, the shapes, images that you see around and nothing else, then you are worshipping images, you are worshipping forms, and this is forbidden in Quran. And I agree with this. But again, to apply it in our practical life, we see, for instance, the manifestation of this in our civilization, that a man is reduced to a muscle animal, and a woman, in the same way, is reduced to an geometrically, I don't know, appealing, symmetrical, I don't know how to define these norms of beauty, but the woman is reduced to such a form. And it is even both for man and woman, and it is even designed in a way that it is given to us through every possible medium, that it ignites a lust in us. So a man for woman and a woman for a man becomes a source of excitement, of lust, and nothing more. It is really interesting that these worshipping forms, the images in our society, it is shown to us as if a source of pride. The more beautiful you are, or more handsome you are, you have a more reason to be proud of yourself. And when you criticize a man, for instance, for trying to attract the attention of women through his body, he would say, I am stepping into his personal life, which might be true, and I am attacking his dignity. Because for our civilization, our forms, our handsomeness, our strength, the way my hair is, or the way my, the arms are built, a source of pride, a source of our base of dignity. Unfortunately, this is the case. An author says this is something terrible. What we should be doing instead, first realize that our body is there for a reason. It's our machinery to both to regulate our emotions and our senses, and also it's a medium to interact with the reality, that it has a part in our creation, a meaningful part, a respectful, honorable part. You should protect its honor. You should protect its respect. How? By using veils. So you can take it in different ways. You can take it as, covering your body, which makes sense to me. But at the same time, covering your body metaphorically in a way that you say, when you stand with your actions, with your clothing, with your behavior, you say, my body is not there for you to excite your lust. It's my respectful body. It's my honorable body, and it has a purpose in this life. You do it with your actions, the way you treat people, the way you interact with them, but also the way you wear your clothes. If your clothes are there to expose your beauty or expose your handsomeness, and you are proud of that, then the way you look your body is, author at least says, it's a low form of treating your body. You take your body lowly. You see it as a piece of meat. But instead, he says you should respect it. It has a purpose. When you have the computer in front of you, you respect its purpose and you use it according to its purpose. You do not use it as, the pot to plant some flowers. The same way, respect your body, author says. Put some veils, both practically and metaphorically, to cover it. So, and I agree with authors that our current civilization, which criticize such an attempt, destroying the civilization is destroying our honor. Man or woman, doesn't matter, or anything between, regardless of your gender. If you have to expose your sexuality, if you have to expose your orientation, if you have to expose it, straight or not, and if you define yourself as your sexuality, if you reduce yourself to your body and the way you have sex with others, then author says there is something wrong with your definition of a human being. This is what I understand from this fourth principle.
Yeah, thank you very much again for contributing to the discussion, your analyses. While we're on the topic, I can offer random bits of information that I do know. Especially in light of how big social media has taken off, things like Instagram, Snapchat, and these are effectively cultural phenomena. Too many, or lots and lots of people are doing it. I think there's something out there. There's these filters and things that alter your face to be in a algorithmically appealing attractive way, and people are motivated to take these altered images and get their face plastically worked on so they look like that image that a computer generated for them. And and there's also irreversible and deadly procedures that people get done to look appealing. And I think, in light of all that, we can also understand how harmful in a physical sense this could be, and also in like a mental um, sense, with people just feeling like they're never good enough, or being surrounded by unrealistic forms and aspiring to be something like that. This really makes us check, where our values are, um, and what we care about. So if there are no further comments or questions, we can move on to the further passages. So thus, together with assisting human happiness in this world, all of thousands of matters of the Quran, like those above three examples, are also serve eternal happiness. You can compare other matters to these, just as present day civilization stands defeated before the Quranic principles concerning human social life, and in reality is bankrupt in the face of the Quran's miraculousness, so too it has been proven decisively in the previous 25 words through the comparisons between European philosophy and human science, which are the spirit of civilization, and the wisdom of the Quran, that philosophy is impotent, and the wisdom of the Quran miraculous. The impotence and bankruptcy of philosophy, and miraculousness and wealth of Quranic wisdom have been proved in the 11th and 12th words. You may refer to those. Furthermore, just as present day civilization is defeated before the miraculousness of the Quran's wisdom in regard to learning and actions, the same is true for literature and rhetoric. The comparison of the literature and rhetoric of civilization and those of the Quran is that of the dark grief and hopeless wailing of a motherless orphan, and the low and uproarious song of a drunkard, and the yearning, hopeful sorrow of an elevated lover arising from a temporary separation, and patriotic songs urging victory or war and high sacrifice. For in regard to the effects of its styles, literature and rhetoric, For in regard to the effects of its styles, literature and rhetoric produce either sorrow or joy, and sadness is of two sorts. It is either a dark sorrow arising from the lack of friends, that is, having no friends or owner, which is the sorrow produced by the literature of civilization, which is stained by misguidance, enamored of nature, tainted by heedlessness, or it is the second sorrow. This arises from a separation of friends. That is, the friends exist, but their absence causes a yearning sorrow. This is the guidance giving, light scattering sorrow which the Quran produces. Joy too is of two sorts. One stimulates the desires of the soul. This is the mark of civilization's literature in the field of theater, cinema, and the novel, while the other joy silences the soul, and is subtle, mannerly, innocently urging the spirit, heart, and mind and subtle faculties to attain to sublime matters, to their original home and eternal abode, and their companions of the hereafter. It is the joy, it is the joy the Quran of miraculousness or miraculous exposition produces. It fills man with eagerness for paradise and eternal happiness, and the vision of God's beauty. Uh, Thus, the vast meaning and mighty truth expressed by the verse say, if the whole of mankind and the jinn were to gather together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like thereof, even if they backed up each other with help and support. Surah 17, verse 88. The vast meaning and mighty truth expressed by the verse is imagined by those of scant intelligence to be an impossible supposition for the purposes of uttering an exaggerated piece of eloquence. God forbid, it is not an exaggeration, nor is it an impossible supposition. It is an absolutely truthful piece of rhetoric, and possible and actual. One aspect of its being in this form is this: if all the fine words of man and jinn which do not issue from the Quran and do not belong to it were to be gathered together, they could not imitate the Quran, and they have not been able to imitate it, for they have been unable to show that they have. The second aspect is this: civilization and science and philosophy and European literature, which are the products of the thought and efforts of mankind and the jinn, and even Satan's, remain in the very pits of impotence before the decrees, wisdom, and eloquence of the Quran, just as we showed in the examples.
Or is it just me, or like I cannot hear Atik if he's speaking?
No,
Oh,
I was trying
sorry.
to, yeah, I was trying to understand what's going on here. It's on the surface, it's like, he's making a comparison or contrast between modern civilization and um, Quranic principles, and I guess the outcomes of each. Yeah, I probably need a second, but is there any initial comments or questions? Brother Brikan, would you like to say something?
Oh, it's, I guess, a good summary of what we've been discussing for weeks. So the author ends with this verse we started at the beginning of some of these chapters, that even if all men and any kind of creatures that you can think of come together and try to produce something like Quran, they won't be able to do it. And then we discussed all these different aspects of Quran, how this verse is in reality, in actuality, is true. Again, regardless of what level of understanding you have, even if you. So when I first read this verse, for instance, the way I understand it's about the worldview, how I locate myself, how I see myself and the others in this creation. Where did I come from? Where am I running towards? And so on and so forth. And for these questions, Quran has an answer, and others have, answers. And when I compare them, Quranic answers are the only answers that satisfy my humanity. This is the first thing comes to my mind. But at the same time, it has also some practical manifestations as well, because we cannot separate the physical world that we live, this practical life that we have, for instance, the social life, and Quranic guidance or religious principles. Whatever we experience, physical or not, somehow are the manifestations of the guidance that are given in Quran. So even if I look at it from a sociological perspective, for instance, an author gave some example. He says, like, when you look at what is being produced so far, and if you look at the signs of what will be produced in near future, so what you experienced, what you are experiencing, and what you will experience from the lenses of the current civilization, and compare it with what is suggested in Quran. When you do that, when you look at the social life from these different lenses perspective, you will see a clear-cut separation. Quranic wisdom will depict with render a picture in which a human has an honor. A human being is a respectful creature with its every aspect, with its body, with its mind, with its soul, with its emotions, the ideas, even the lust. You will see how respectful they are, how beautifully designed they are. How meaningfully designed. You will see that. But on the other side, when you look from the civilization's perspective, or let's say at least in the translation, it is summarized with two words, philosophy and science. I guess we can take it as whatever you see that claims that creation doesn't have a creator. When you look from their perspective, you will see a very lowly life form. It is lower, even it's a lower form than an animal. Human condition as defined or depicted by them will be either full of misery and sadness, or full of joy and excitement. But author says, when you look at in details what kind of sadness, what kind of misery we are talking about, and what kind of joy or excitement they are talking about, when you look at them, you will see that, again, it's not something acceptable by a human being. All they say is that we humans, we don't mean anything. We doesn't have any purpose. We try to create our purpose. And most of the time we fail. Nowadays, in our current culture, contemporary culture, this creating your own purpose, creating your own meaning is the buzzword. But when we look at the outcome, what we create, what we try to at least create, is nothing but misery. So we don't have any meaning, we don't have any purpose. In fact, we don't have any friends either. Everybody for his or her own self, for herself or himself. If we agree upon something, we agree upon something. Otherwise, we don't have any possibility of a common ground. We don't have any friends, or if we have any friends, they will go away, they will disappear, they will die eventually. And you are doomed as well, because you will die eventually. You will become nothing. This is the main message. When it comes to excitement and joy, it's all about mundane things. The lust as excited by the form or body. Enjoyment, which is limited to a few seconds or few minutes. If you want to have more enjoyment, you have to do the things repeatedly, which your body wouldn't allow. Even when you talk about a higher form of enjoyments, like reading a book, for instance, as romanticized in our current culture. Again, it's limited to what you read, and it will end once your book ends, and your memory will fade out. I was reading the article recently how dementia, losing your memory, is becoming more and more widespread. So even if you enjoy reading books, they will not stay with you, unfortunately. So this is the way it is depicted. But on the contrary, Quran says, no, you have a purpose, you have a meaning, and nothing is being lost. You will have an eternal life. And every enjoyment you taste actually is a glimpse of an eternal enjoyment. So every book you read from a Quranic perspective becomes evidence of the eternal knowledge or eternal, whatever quality you get out of book. Eternal love. It is an evidence of eternity, whatever you get. But from a philosophical or scientific perspective, as being taught in our contemporary civilization, every enjoyment is an evidence of your the mortality. That it's an evidence that just like your memory, just like this, the current enjoyment that you tasted for a moment, just like it fades out, just like it disappears, everything disappears. That is what you get there. So to me, this is the comparison as made in the text, and I say, yeah, I think this is true.
Alrighty, thank you for that. Do we have, I don't know, any other comments or questions on this at this point in the text? If not, we can certainly move on. I think I ran out of slides. I'll switch to
So I think don't feel obliged to continue or finish anything. Like I think what you covered is already good enough. If you agree, you can stop. I see some hands now raised. But again, like you are the moderator. If you say this is enough, this is enough. If you want to continue, of course, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do think we covered enough material where covering any more might jumble some the meaning. I think this might be a decent place to stop. Abdul Aziz, you had your hand raised for a second.
For clarification, for Aziz specifically, I didn't mean, we should stop discussing. I just meant, if I think things we don't need to go to further in text, then we don't need to. We can continue discussing what we already read.
Yeah, I
That's
see.
all I meant. Sorry for the confusion.
It's okay, yeah. So one part I think, Birkan, you were saying and wasn't clear to me, like when we were talking about other things, like reading a book and then it's dying, finding joy in anything we know in our current life, and it's dying. I hear you, it's my life, I know what you're talking about. But when we say, but Quranic guidance is the solution, I want to say I agree, but also I don't know, like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't feel exactly it's under my hand. Like there is something that I see there in our current life. Or are you talking about future life after death? I'm just a little confused about that. Assalamu alaikum.
Birkan, would you like to answer his question?
Oh, sure. Like I can try to share what I think, of course, what is given to me. So let's start with our current life, current moment even. So I read a book. I used to read more books. That's a confession. I read a book and I enjoy it. And if I see this book as a product of a human being, which seems to be, right? And if I say, what I get from this book is some activation of neurons in my mind, which triggers, certain chemical to be circulated in my bloodstream. And this is the joy, as I define. And of course, this joy is bounded by the level of these chemicals, how much my bloodstream can, keep them, and such limitations are there. And also from maybe a deeper perspective, I see a glimpse of knowledge in this book. Again, I enjoy it. And I said, yeah, I interacted with a certain amount of knowledge. But of course, this is, as a hungry human, this is not enough for me. Because I know this knowledge fades. One moment it's valuable, another moment it's full of lies. It's not even true anymore. Or I forget about it. From another perspective, I say, well, this book is written by a very clever or compassionate, depending on the content of the book, author. Whatever quality I experience there, either in the book or as I reflect them onto the author, they all fade out eventually. They are very limited. They cannot satisfy my humanity, and they will go away, just like an apple that I eat. They are destroyed by my body, by my mind. They are just digested. They are used, and the rest are thrown away. Quranic wisdom comes and tells me that become the knowledge that you experience. Where do you think it comes from? It's coming from an eternal, absolute source. You are given a glimpse of this knowledge. And wherever you look, you will see other glimpses of the same source. Everything that you experience in this creation will have the knowledge in it. Then it becomes an infinite source of knowledge for me. The tiny amount of knowledge that I experience from Quranic perspective, it becomes a link for me to connect to an infinite amount of knowledge. Compassion that I experience there becomes a link for me to an infinite amount of compassion. Because in Quran, my Creator tells me, just like I show my compassion, my mercy, when you read a book, which is a creation of mine, I take care of you. I show my mercy and compassion everywhere you look. So this limited, doomed to die, fade out qualities becomes eternal qualities, becomes absolute qualities, which can satisfy my humanity, my infinite hunger. You can take it as from other perspective in which you talk about the afterlife as well, because death seems to us as an end. But Quran comes and tells us that no, it's not an end. Just like every moment of you dies and becomes another moment, you will die and you will become another creation. So this is what I meant with this two comparisons.
All right. There are no more comments, questions, or concerns. I think this is a good place to end for the day. Thank you all for gathering. I hope we were able to get something out of it, inshallah. Yeah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام